Hello YouTube friends. It's ages since I caught you up with all my knitting projects, and I did a video months ago now telling you about some of the things that I was knitting. Now I'm going to talk you through some of the things I've got on the table. Let's look at this one first of all, because this one is the mitred square blanket that this one's been on the go for ages, but I think you know by now, don't you, that I like to have several things on the go at once. So this is using all my little bits of scrap yarn, sock yarn, bits and pieces of waste yarn, and I made a blanket that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in that direction, and I think it's 12 in this direction, and it's just big enough to go over the back of the sofa, and it's finished. I sewed all the ends in, it's done. But then I looked at it and thought, how cool would it be if it had a lovely knitted border all the way around the outside? So I've cast on with my very, very long circular needle, and I don't know if I'll get stitches for all the way round, but maybe I'll do one side and then the other side and then the two short sides. That might be the way I do it. So I'm just going to knit back and forth in the same kind of random lovely colours that I've got here. Just pick up anything. I've only done that much so far. So I'm picking up the stitches around that one, and that will be a lovely brain out of gear, no thinking involved, just knit, 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 knit. It will be a lovely project to do of an evening. Now, so that's that one that's ongoing. I mean, it is finished, but now I'm going to do an extra bit of finishing for that one. Let me show you what's in this basket here, because a while ago I made my granddaughter a jumper using this pattern, and I really enjoyed knitting it, and I knit I'll leave the link to the pattern in the description below. It's a really nice pattern, and it's knit with lovely Icelandic wool. And so I knit her this one, and then I made her just a plain yellow one, just as sort of to have for second best, and she wears it a lot, and so I thought I would make her another. I'm making it in pink this time. The one I made, the other one I made was in this lovely yellow, and now I'm making her a pink one. It's knit from the neck down. Can you come on my knee, please? Thank you. Cats and knitting don't really mix. It's knit from the top. It's knit from the neck down. This is where the sleeves will come in, and I'll knit the sleeves down here and here, and I'm just casting off the bottom here. I like knitting top down. It means you can make it exactly the length you want it, and also you can see if you're going to run out of yarn. I'm not, because I ordered a little bit extra. So that one's another lovely knit that doesn't really require much thinking about. I'm doing that one every now and then when I feel like a change from this one. But really what I wanted to talk to you about today was this project. I'm knitting this waistcoat in this beautiful variegated yarn, which is called Kayunai, which is all the way from Estonia. It's a really lovely yarn. I like it a lot. And so I cast on a waistcoat. I thought this would be a nice simple knit for me to do, a lovely rainbow waistcoat. I'm knitting it in moss stitch, which gives it that lovely texture. But then, and I've explained this on the previous video, as soon as I got to the bit where I need to separate for the sleeves in order to be able to wear it, then the variegation of the yarn, which is so lovely, would be interrupted and would be just not work anymore, because I would be doing short rows here, short rows here. So when I talked about that the first time round, some of you might remember, I got lots and lots of wonderful ideas from people, because I realised that I was going to have to steek this. Now, steeking is where you cut your knitting, and it's a very scary thing to do when you spend all that time knitting a project and then you just take scissors to it and cut into it and all these loose stitches everywhere. But it's not that hard to do, really, and I've watched loads of videos about it, and I got lots of advice in the comments from you guys, And so what I'm going to do today, I've put all the stitches, I've finished it, I think it's as long as I want it to be. And excuse me, cat, thank you very much, you keep walking that way, good girl, good girl. It's the size I want it to be. The sleeves I think are the size I want them to be. So now what I'm going to do is bring you along for the journey of steeking this knitting. I'm using this sewing machine, so I'll reset up the camera so that you can see what I'm doing, and let's steek, shall we? It's a little bit scary, I have to say, but we'll do it. It'll be fine. Once I've done it, I'm going to stitch the shoulders together with Kitchener stitch, and then make a cast off edge here and block the thing, and then hopefully the waistcoat will be done. Let's hope so. Now I need you to be to go somewhere else, please, because this is not going to work if you sit there. What do you think? I'll reset up the camera then, and so that you can see what I'm doing on the sewing machine. So when I was knitting this, and I got to the bit where I thought the armhole should be, I made a break in the pattern there and knit some knit stitches and one purl stitch, which on the wrong side is one knit stitch. And this is the gutter down which I'm going to do my stitching. I wonder if you can see okay there. Well, we'll try. Okay then, here we go. Where's Arno when you need him? So it's doing a very close zigzag stitch right next to the line of stitching that I've done. There we go. So I'll just stop before I got to the live stitches, because I'll do that little bit once I've grafted the bits together, I think. So there's all the stitching done. Now we've got the scary bit where we've got to cut it. Phew, there we go. And now with these raw edges here, I'm going to fold this back and stitch this down, this edge here. Then I'm going to graft the front to the back, like so. And then I guess I'll finish that last little bit at the top there, stitch it all down, and then I'm going to face it with some bias tape, something like that. Yeah, I'll come back to you when I've done all of that. Okay, so I've stitched this edge down. Looks a bit funky. I think that might be to do with me not getting my decreases very even along this edge. But yarn's very forgiving, so I think it might block okay. So the next thing I'm going to do then, so I've stitched all those down now, so that edge is now nice and tidy. And now I'm going to stitch these two together with some sort of Kitchener stitch type of thing. And I don't like doing Kitchener stitch, but I'll give it a go. There's lots of threads everywhere, aren't there? We'll see how we get along with that anyway. So far, so good. Well, it's quite a bit later now, and with this one here, I've started to put the bias tape onto the sleeves. Now I went upstairs and I found this big box full of bias tape that used to belong to my mum, and so some of this is decades old and some of it is too thin. There's every type of bias tape here, some really thick stuff, some of the traditional sort of this. I used this at school, I remember, for all sorts of different projects, but I've chosen this one. It's really hard to choose a colour to go with this, but this one I've chosen not because of the colour, but because it's a little wider than the traditional bias tape, and you're not going to see it anyway if I sew it on right. Okay, so I've only done one side, and I've stitched the bias tape on to the inside of the sleeve and folded it over, and I'm just stitching it down now. It looks a bit of a mess, but by the time I've stitched this down, I think it'll be fine. So I'm going to carry on and do that now. Now, I'm always amused whenever I'm listening to Anna and Carlos and they're talking about something they haven't worn in a long time, or something they've just got out of the wardrobe. It's shrunk in the wardrobe. You know, we all know what they mean, don't we? Well, this has shrunk while I was knitting it. So it's a little on the tight side, and it does fall, doesn't close, let's say. But I'm going to keep stitching neatening these edges now, trying really hard to make sure that we don't see that pale yellow coming over onto the outside there. But there's another couple of knitting things I want to talk about before I wrap up. Now, I talked, didn't I, about finding my beautiful teacup. I'm going to get on and finish that. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave it. And but one way of keeping my tea warm is this little stand that I've got, and you can put a candle inside it here, and the teapot sits on top of that if it's a metal one, and keeps lovely and warm for a long time. And that's great. That's one way. People have asked me about this and they've seen it and thought, where did you get that from? Amazon. Just search and you'll find something like it, I'm sure. I can't remember what I searched for now, but that's one way of keeping my tea warm. But here is my newest way of keeping my tea warm. I've made myself one of these. Do you remember these old tea cozies? Once of a day, every house would have had one of these. Now, it's not a nice knit. I didn't think so. I'll show you the inside of it. The reason why it makes such a good tea cozy is that it's very thermal because of the way it's knit, the way that you pull the yarn you're not using across the back to make the pleat on the front, which makes it lovely and thermal to keep your tea warm. And obviously you need a pom-pom on the top. So I've got two ways of keeping my tea warm now. The pattern was freely available. I found it on Pinterest, and you'll find them really easily if you wanted to knit yourself one like this. I'm going to carry on now and finish this, but I just wanted to show you before I finish up Agnes's jumper. I've got to the point now where I'm just ready to cast on the sleeves and knit those down, but now I'm casting off the hem here. Now I'll bring you in a little bit closer because I want to show you the cast off method that I use. Just like the neck edge is a rolled edge here, which is a couple of rows of ordinary knitting, a few rows of rib, and then that curls over and gives that rolled edge. Well, so the hem is exactly the same. So you finish this sweater by knitting 5 rows of knit 1 purl 1 rib, and then 3 rows of just ordinary knitting. But you want the cast off edge to be nice and squashy, springy, not too tight. You don't want it to cinch in. So this is the way that I probably learned it from a YouTube tutorial years ago, but I use it all the time now when I'm doing my cast off. Normally you would just knit the next stitch and pass that over. With this way, You put the yarn round the needle once and knit the next stitch, and then you pass that yarn over and then pass the stitch on the needle over, so you're doing 2 passovers. Round we go, knit 1, over we go twice. And what that means is you get a much more stretchy cast off edge here, which is a lot easier to put on and off, and it's not a tight edge. So I do all my cast off edges like this now. I wish I could credit whoever I learned this from, but I've been doing it like this for years now. So I like this pattern very much. I like knitting on circular needles because that means you don't have to do a purl stitch. Not that I'm averse to doing purl stitches, it's just that this way you only do a knit stitch. I like this cast off edge, it gives a nice loose cast off, but it's strong as well. It doesn't really take that much longer to do 1 extra yarn over. I'll carry on and finish knitting that off, and then I'll cast the sleeves on, and that will be finished soon. It's such a lovely jumper to knit. I should make one in every colour they do. I'll just have a little cuddle with Cat Rita, and then I'm going to keep going with my rainbow waistcoat. Lots of knitting projects to show you today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, do that and click the notifications bell so that you'll never miss any time that I post a video to the YouTubes. Never work with children and animals. Anyway, Cat Rita and I say goodbye and thank you so much for watching. Can I get on with some knitting, please?